Thank you so much for coming. My name is Christina Park. I'm the Director of Guidance at the high school. Here with me tonight is Jessica Kasha, one of our counselors, and Sarah McGinnis, our other counselor. We have been working with your juniors. We just finished our last junior workshop today. How many of you have a junior in this room? Anybody have a sophomore? Freshman? No? Okay, great. So, if you could, ask your juniors. We all gave them a blue folder. It has a lot of helpful resources in here to help them start with the college process. There's information on standardized testing, there's information on college visits, there's a checklist of things that they should be doing now their junior year. They should refer back to this frequently during the year. So they have this in their backpack. A lot of them keep it in their backpack and don't open it until senior year. They will be getting a new folder senior year with just updated information as to what they should be doing when they're in their senior year. But ask about this folder. It has a lot of helpful information. The other thing I want to direct your attention to is we have a Canvas page with a lot of great resources on it. The juniors were exposed to this week. So just to give you a quick overview on what's on the Canvas page, it has a counselor breakdown, junior year preparation, which we're going to get into a lot through this presentation, so I'm not going to keep this up, but just explains what they should be doing junior year. There is information on standardized testing. So for example, the College Board is the website that students will be using to register for SATs. We recommend juniors take an SAT in the spring of their junior year, and again in the fall. We're going to explain more about that as we get into the presentation. The ACT is another standardized testing website that students can use that colleges accept in place of the SAT. And then this FAIR test website, this is a list, it's a pretty comprehensive list of all schools that are test optional. Since COVID, there has been a number of schools that have gone test optional because of students weren't able to get access to testing sites, and the trend has kind of continued. A lot of schools are remaining test optional. Some of our top tier schools, we are now seeing them bring the standardized testing requirement back. So because of that, we still recommend students take an SAT at least once in case they apply to a school in the end that requires it. So we just want to make sure that they have at least one under their belt, because come senior year, if they're looking at the requirements and they realize, oh my gosh, I need a standardized test, they at least have that. Okay? But if your student is, has a lot of testing anxiety, does not perform well on tests, this FAIR test website is a really helpful resource, because I feel like it takes the pressure off them that they don't have to necessarily rely on a standardized test. There's a lot of schools out there that don't take standardized tests into the equation when they're factoring in their decision. So that is a helpful resource to look at. Other things on our Canvas page, we're going to show you a program called Naviance, which is a really great tool to help your students stay organized within this process. They can do a college search on this website. They can look at a scattergram plot, which we're going to show you. It can give a really great visual of a target school, a reach school, or a safety school. So there are just a couple videos here to show students how to use the tools on Naviance to make this process a little easier for them. Financial aid is something that you/your student will be doing come senior year. You can't do anything with financial aid now. It doesn't open up until this year. It was December of your senior year. Traditionally, that's okay. Traditionally, it was October, but there has been a lot of changes with FAFSA throughout the past couple years. So the opening of FAFSA is in December. We do hold a financial aid night in October. So just keep an eye out for that. We will promote it. But they don't have to do anything now with financial aid. That is a next year, senior year thing that they will be handling. This blue folder documents, it's just electronic version of everything in their blue folder. Upcoming events. So junior parent night tonight, that's where we're at. We do have colleges come in to do information sessions. So our next college that's coming in is Suffolk University. That's going to be on February 25th. We invite students to sign up. They come into this room. A representative from the university will come and talk about all the great things that their college has to offer, and we do that through BridgeBlock. So the student's not missing any classes. They sign up through their mentor or they email their guidance counselor and we can sign them up that way. So we had a bunch of colleges come in the fall. Now we're gonna start doing our spring college visits here as well. We have military branches coming in all the time. So the next upcoming is the Army National Guard will be February 27th and the US Army will be March 6th. I just got an inquiry today for the Marines, so they will be coming, I think, sometime in March as well. We offer 3 field trips a year. Our first field trip is March 18th. These field trips are first come, first serve. We cannot take a lot of students. So for example, this STEM career exploration field trip, it's all about STEM careers. It's at Bridgewater State University. We can only take 15 students. We have not publicized it to students yet, but once we do, it's like a mad rush. Everybody comes down to guidance. They get their permission slips, and whoever brings it back first and gets on the list gets to go. So we're only able to take 15. If your son or daughter is interested in the STEM field, particularly computer science, it's more kind of geared towards computer science, I strongly encourage you to push them to grab a permission slip for that. The Career Day Conference is a kind of general career day. They cover hospitality, they cover healthcare, the FBI is there. That's always a big hot topic for the students to stop at. But that is also a nice field trip. And then Construction Day in May is a really great hands-on activity field trip. It's held at Massasoit. Students can explore, big machines. They use the tools that could be applicable to construction careers. They talk to employers. They get information on unions. So it's another just option for our students if they're exploring more of the trades and not necessarily your college and career route. So those are our field trips. Also, just for you to know, there's a big college fair in Boston. It's in March 27th and 28th. It's not a school-sponsored event. We will not be taking students to it. However, they could use a college visit day where they can go on their own, and that absence will be excused as long as we get confirmation that they were at that event. So keep in mind, these are some of the events. I add anything that comes my way to this page, so it's kind of like a flowing document. So anything that I see, I add it here. Under important information, this is just like deadline terminology. There's a lot of terminology throughout this college process, whether it's early action, early decision, regular decision, rolling. We'll get all into the PowerPoint. But this is just a quick snapshot of like some of the differences between early action and early decision, because students can get confused about that terminology. Under this pre-college summer programs, these programs, they come at a cost. However, they could be beneficial for students, especially if they're interested in some of our top tier schools. They range in different types of majors depending on what your student is interested in. It is a nice thing to have on a resume if you're able to afford it and if you're able to do it, but it's not like a make or break. But it is something that if a student is willing and wanting to, it's something to consider and look at if they wanted to boost their resume. There's more. This is just a quick list of like ones in the area, but I'm sure that there is more out there. The last thing in terms of the Canvas page, our library has a lot of helpful resources to make this process easier. There is a lot of study materials for our standardized testing. There's a lot of physical books on like college prep, what to look for, how to look for. So students can either check out physical books. Miss London has graciously offered to deliver books to students if they need to, or they can check out ebooks through our SOAR app. So again, just a lot of helpful resources to help make this process a little bit more manageable. And with that, I'm going to jump into the presentation. Okay, so as a reminder, we are your counselors. Ms. McGinnis, she has students A through F, so anyone with the last name A through F, Ms. McGinnis is your counselor. I am Mrs. Park, Christina Park. I have students G through M, and Ms. Tasha has students N through Z. Please use us. We have done this for a very long time. I I'd like to say we're experts in this process.
It's ever-changing field.
Yes, so please, you can email us, you can call us, come in for a meeting. We're happy to help. I know that some of you may have had students go through this process before, but as Ms. Costa just alluded to, a lot has changed, or this might be your first rodeo. So no question is a stupid question, I like to say, so please just come and ask, and we're happy to help. Junior year checklist. So, as I mentioned, we met with your juniors this week, and we couldn't emphasize enough that the research starts now. They need to start thinking about where they want to go, what type of setting they want to be in, what type of location. Do they want to be a car ride away or a plane ride away? Do they want to be in a city? Do they want to be in a suburb? Do they want to be in a big school, a small school? They're not going to really understand what that means, I feel like, until they get onto a campus and start visiting. Great times to visit, and we're going to get into this a little bit more, is before May, because campus is still in session and you're going to get a real sense of what it's like when the students are on campus, okay? Another important part of this research is course selection. We are going to be picking classes with your students the week we get back from break, and there are some majors and some colleges that require specific courses, and you don't want your students, like October of their senior year, just realize, oh my gosh, my school really wants me to have a particular math class to get into this major. That's why the research starts now, because we're having the conversations about course selection, and it's gonna be really hard, close to impossible, to change your courses in October, because you're already, a month and a half in. So just make sure that your student is looking at some college websites, if they have some in mind, if they have a particular major in mind, that will be important to start thinking about what courses they should be taking, okay? A lot of that information can be found on the website, but if you can't find it, you can always call. You can always call and ask, my son, or we actually encourage your student to call, and they get a little embarrassed when they do that, but I am thinking of an engineering major. What math do you recommend I take? Or I'm going into nursing. Is anatomy something that you look for? Things like that would be helpful to start looking into. We just did the group presentations, and we encourage every student at the group presentations to come meet with us individually. This is such an individualized process. Students are going to have a different list of schools than their friends, different deadlines, different requirements. It is so hard for them to not compare each other with each other. We see their faces, they start to get overwhelmed. Oh my gosh, she's already has her list, she knows where she's going, she's already applied. I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what my major is. They need to meet with us. We will help them. We will plan out their map in terms of how they're going to get to their end goal. But everything is individualized, and it's important for them to meet with us to make sure that they are on the right track. Also in the fall for their junior year, they need to sign up for their SATs or ACTs like I alluded to. A note about signing up for SATs, we don't offer the SATs at Abington High School. You're going to want to register well before the registration deadline in order to get a spot in a location that's close to us. A lot of students wait to the registration deadline, and then they realize they have to drive an hour to Fall River to take the SATs on a Saturday morning, which starts at 7:30. So we have a slide about SATs in a bit. It will show you in terms of what the registration deadlines are, but strong advice is to register well before the registration deadline. Other things to be doing, we're going to be showing Naviance. Naviance is a great tool to help you stay organized. Ms. Kasha's going to show you a couple of tricks on it in a couple minutes, but it will be helpful in terms of helping them stay organized. And then lastly, towards the end of the year, they could start thinking about who they're going to ask to write their letters of recommendation. Most colleges require one, maybe two. Some require a guidance counselor, but it's starting to think about who they may want to ask to write that letter. We're going to get into letters of recommendation more in the PowerPoint, but it's good to start thinking about that at the end of their junior year. This is just a timeline broken up as to what they should be doing when. So as I said, complete course selection, that is coming up. That is a big one that they should be focusing on. There are a couple of college fairs in March if they're interested in going. There is an SAT test. The registration deadline has passed for that, but there is one in May and one in June. In April, as you see here, so there's a registration deadline of April 18th. My suggestion, get on the College Board website now if you want to take that May test. There's another college fair in April. Again, we have the May SAT date. There's a registration deadline for the June SAT date. And again, more SATs in June. For the summer, we always encourage to continue to visit colleges. Even if school's not in session, college is still open, so you can still go and check it out. We want you to continue updating your college list after you've been on those visits, after you've done your research, and then start to think about ideas of what you may want to write your college essay on. So I think to begin, like, where do I go, what do I want in a school, these are like the big topics that students should start thinking about when they are developing their list. In terms of location, like I said, do they want to be a plane ride or a car ride? Size of school is always a big one. UMass Amherst is a very large school, and your first year classes, you may be in a lecture hall with hundreds of kids, and you are taking your attendance by clicking a button on the ceiling, and you may not have that one-on-one communication with your teacher unless you sign up for office hours. Some kids can handle that, and some kids can't. So it's just a matter of what is a good fit for them, knowing themselves, knowing if they would do better in a bigger school or a smaller school. If sports is really important to them, whether they play or they just like to be a part of the sporting environment, checking out a game or two if you go on those college visits. Cost, obviously college is a very expensive endeavor. Investment, thank you, that's the word I was looking for. So that is important, that plays a part of this process. I will say, exciting news this year is community college is now free in Massachusetts for the majority of students, okay? It used to be not free, and then a couple years ago it had to be 25 or older, and now it's once you graduate from high school, you're eligible. This is a great option for students, not only financially, but like if you don't know what you're gonna do, if you don't know what you're gonna major in, take a couple classes at a community college. You can easily transfer to a 4-year school, saving a ton of money. You're saving 2 years worth of money in the end of it. And that's just something that we always want to make sure students are aware of. We always have Massasoit come in senior year. They do on-the-spot admissions with our students. It's always a fun day. Students get their acceptance on the spot that day, and it's really great to see. So I wouldn't shut out a community college at this point. I know sometimes they don't have, in a student size, like the best reputation because they can't get that college experience of living at a school, but it is a really great cost-saving way to get your education. Developing your list. So on average, students can apply to as many schools as they want, but that can get really expensive because application fees range from $50 to $100+ just to submit your application fee. So we say on average, we like students to apply to like 5 to 8 schools. And within that 5 to 8, we want to see a range. We want to see 3 safety schools at least, 3 match or target schools, and 2 reaches. Again, with the Navance program, as Kashi's going to show you, like a really good tool to visualize where your student falls in terms of a match, a safety, or a reach, so they will know how to have a well-balanced list based on this Navance tool. But again, application fees can get expensive. Try to narrow it down. There's not going to be 20 schools that you're going to love. It's just not going to happen. I feel like some students will throw schools on the list just because, and then not realize like, oh, this is starting to add up. I need to pay all this money. If they do the research, if they look into it, there's probably going to be less than 10 that they absolutely love, okay? It's also important that your safety or likely schools that you're going to get into are ones that you actually can see yourself going to. You want to make sure that you can see yourself living on that campus or going to those classes or being with those types of people that are on that campus. So it's really important that they do the research and look into the schools, especially for the safety schools, because those might be the schools that you only get into, and you have to be happy with that. Couple notes on college visits. We can't stress enough how important this is. This is really going to help them get a sense of if they can see themselves on a campus. Typically, you can go on to a college's website. They usually have a link that says visit, and then they'll have a calendar of when they offer tours and information sessions. We strongly encourage you to do an information session in addition to a tour, because the information sessions are usually run by like admissions counselors, whereas the tours are run by college kids. So it depends on who you get on those days. But the information sessions are super helpful. In terms of our college visit policy at Abington High School, students can use 5 absences or leave school 5 times for college visit purposes and have that absence be excused. So starting from now until the end of senior year, or May 1st, I think it is, students can go on 5 college visits. That could also be a community college, that could be a military meeting, that could be a trade school. All they need to do is show confirmation that they have been at that place on that date, and then they would bring that to Ms. Harrington in the front office, who handles attendance, and she will excuse that absence. Yeah?
Sorry, is that 5 total or 5 between that, 5 per year?
Good question, 5 total. So if they use 3 now, they only have 2 senior year. Okay? These are helpful things to do when you're on a college campus. Have a list of questions ready. So for example, if you are going to a school and you're thinking of nursing, nursing usually has a higher GPA than their regular general admission. So ask those questions of like, what's the average GPA for your nursing program? Do you require SATs? Stuff like that. It's always helpful to have a list of questions prepared. If you can, sit in on a class. Some colleges allow this, some don't, but it is a good way to kind of get a feel of you know, how the professors are, how the classes are run. If you want to check out a sporting event, get an idea of student life, that's important. There is a sheet in your student's blue folder of other helpful tips on what to do on a college visit. So I encourage you, if you do go on a college visit with your student, take that sheet with you, check it out. It is a helpful tool. The last thing is, if your student is planning on going far away to college and visiting is not quite feasible, you could potentially arrange like an alumni interview in the area to get information on the school. They usually have alumni in Boston representing schools. So that might be another way to get more information about a school if you can't get directly on their campus. And with that, I think I'm handing it over to Ms. McGinnis.
So there's a few deadlines that you're going to be hearing about throughout this process. Probably one of the more popular ones that you'll hear about is early action. That one is non-binding, so I'm looking kind of at the green section right here. So students can apply to as many schools early action as they want. Usually those deadlines are November 1st or November 15th. If your student is applying to some southern schools, like UNC has become a little bit popular in Clemson, those deadlines are actually October 15th. So if you're applying to some southern schools, that deadline may be a little bit earlier. So again, just emphasizing it's really important to continue to do the research just so students come back in the fall with a real solid list. We're gonna start working on this process right when we get back, and these deadlines come up very quickly. So again, students can apply to as many schools as they want with early action. Rolling admissions pretty much means that they really don't have a deadline. Usually that deadline's like July of their senior year. So that deadline's kind of open-ended. Regular decision, typically that is just like the end date of the last time that you can apply to that school. So typically that deadline's in January, February, some are a little bit later. Unfortunately, if you miss the deadline, you miss the deadline. So students, especially like November, we tell them we don't want them working on this Halloween or starting this Halloween because it can get overwhelming and they can make mistakes, and we just want them to be thorough and take their time with this process. There are some other options for applying. Early decision is binding, so that means that a student can apply to a school early decision, but if they get accepted to that school, they have to attend. It makes us a little nervous doing early decision just because you don't know what the financial aid package is. So you could get some schools down the road that may give you a really good deal, and if you've already committed early decision, you're stuck there. And we've seen some schools in recent years kind of get away with early action, so some schools may not even offer early action, they just may offer early decision. I think like BC is one of the ones now that is only early decision. So it can get a little confusing with all the different options. We want students to just make sure that they're ready. So if students aren't ready to apply early action, that's okay. We have about 30% of our students every year on average apply early action, but again, it's really when they're ready. So we don't want to pressure students, but the good side of when you do apply early, you typically find out a little bit earlier. So typically around winter break, students start hearing from some schools. So that's exciting. It takes a lot of pressure off too. You've been working hard on this process. So finding out before Christmas break is nice, but again, it's a very individualized process. Some of the more competitive majors will specifically require students to apply early action. So like nursing's always an early action deadline. So again, it's just important to make sure that you're looking at the website and making sure that you're meeting those deadlines. So there's a number of admission factors. So the colleges look at the student as a whole. They want to make sure that the student can handle it academically, but also that they're just like a good person, and they'll contribute positively to their campus. So they do really take a holistic approach. GPA is a factor. Our GPA is unweighted, so that means an A is an A in an AP class and a level 2 class. All colleges will recalculate our students' GPAs because every high school does things differently. We're on different scales, so colleges will always recalculate GPAs. But it's important if, like, going back to when you're doing college visits, there is an opportunity to do an info session, and oftentimes those info sessions give you more data as far as what their average GPA is. So then you can kind of see where your child is at and see if this is a good fit for them. Class rank is a factor. We don't really consider it a major part of the application piece. I know there's a big buzz with rank, but really it's more of their GPA and the rigor of the courses that they're taking. And colleges don't want to see students just getting straight A's in the same level classes. They want to see students challenging themselves. So just making sure that students continue to challenge themselves, especially next year. We're telling our students, like, we want to make sure that they're pushed more next year, but not pushed so much that they're having panic attacks every day. So just trying to figure out making sure that they're in the appropriate classes. Standardized testing, as we talked about, is still a factor for most colleges, but not as important as it has been in the past. The personal essay, I find, is a really good opportunity for colleges to learn more about your child. But it's also important to remember to have the essay always go back to the student. You don't want to just have a great essay about your student's grandfather. So the admission counselor may know a lot about this grandfather, but they don't know more about your child. So it's really a great opportunity to have them, show what they've learned, how they've overcome something. But again, it just gives them a different viewpoint of what your child is and what your child can do on campus. As we talked about letters of recommendation, usually we can only send 2 letters. Some colleges will require a guidance counselor letter, so let us know if you need us to write a letter. It's important to try to identify teachers that can also highlight different aspects of your child. Having 2 of the same letters isn't really helpful. So especially because you only have limited documentation you can submit to a college, so even if there was a teacher that maybe your child struggled with and really persevered in their class, that may be a good teacher to ask, not just the one that you got an easy A in. So just kind of being thoughtful and trying to pick specific teachers to write letters, again, to highlight different aspects of you or of your child. Extracurricular activities are always good, but also not all of our students can play a lot of sports or do different things in school. So it's really, if your child had more family responsibility, they can also put that on the application. So it doesn't have to be, you know, athletics or drama or things related to Abington High School. It can be other things that they contribute outside of school. We don't have a lot of students interview. I think in a lot of schools, they don't require it and kind of gone away from it. But if it is required, it is a good opportunity. It's good to practice. We can help practice and role play with them because it's a different setting, and we want to help them with that process. But very few students do actually interview. There's a number of components of the application process. I think the majority of your students will probably have at least one school that's a Common App school. So the great thing about the Common App is that there's hundreds of schools that are affiliated with it. So in theory, students really only have to complete one application, and then to work on with this process. So we can hopefully get into a little bit of more of the Common App later. We talked about the personal, about the essay. What the student is responsible for is they're going to complete their application and submit it. If there's standardized testing, students will also submit that. What we will send is your child's transcript, the letters of recommendation, and our school profile. So that's what we send. We use Naviance to send all of our documents electronically. So we'll show you Naviance, but it will be very important, especially next year, to make sure that all of the colleges that your student's applying to is accurate in Naviance. As I talked about, the letters of recommendation is an important piece of the application process, just because teachers can highlight strengths and different characteristics of your child that the application can't show. Teachers see your kids every day, so it is, and they develop really strong relationships. So it is a great aspect of the application. If your child has had a teacher twice, so maybe next year your child has a teacher that they had freshman year, that may be a good one too to ask, just to talk about the growth from freshman year to senior year. So that's something to think of. If your child is looking at a specific major, it'll be important to also just double check to see if they have any specific requirements. So computer science majors may say that they need a math or a science teacher for a letter of recommendation. So again, it's important to make sure that you're just looking at their college website, making sure that you're asking the appropriate teachers. Oftentimes, we're only allowed to send 2 letters to schools. Students ask for more letters, and that's fine. It's just that the college is very specific. If they want 2, they are only accepting 2. So we can't just slide a few more in there. So again, it's just making sure that you're asking the appropriate teachers to make sure that they're highlighting all of your students' strengths. As we talked about, there's the SAT and the ACT. So most of our students take the SAT. We have a handful of students that take the ACT, but that's not as popular as the SAT. Some of the local test centers are usually Rockland, Whitman-Hanson, Weymouth. So those are usually where our students go to, as long as they register for the SAT in the right amount of time. Like I said, the FAIR test website's a great resource to see what schools don't require the SAT. I always tell students that the SAT is just 4 hours on a Saturday. So it is a piece, but you're comparing your transcript, which is 4 years of your courses. So I know a lot of students do put pressure on themselves, but there's just some students that aren't great test takers. And again, you may have a great test taker, but if they haven't done consistent work in 4 years, that doesn't show the college that they're college ready. And having said that, if a student had kind of a rough start the past couple of years in high school and they're on the upswing, that's great. We have a lot of students that get discouraged with themselves, I wish I did better freshman, sophomore year. It's okay, you got this. You're on the upswing, you're showing colleges that you're ready, that you're doing a great job, so don't, that's in the past. Don't dwell on that. Let's just focus on what you can do now moving forward. So again, luckily standardized testing isn't as much of a piece of the process as it has been in the past.
Sports is a really great way for your child to get involved in activities on campus. There are a variety of different ways, from recreational sports, flag football, kickball, whatever your child might want to do for fun, to kind of get involved in the campus, to meet new friends. But then there's also NCAA level sports that your child can participate in. D1 and D2 have a very specific process for eligibility. If your child's thinking about applying to a school where they want to play a sport that's D3, none of this applies. There's no process. So this specifically is just for D1 and D2 students. And again, this goes back to the doing your research now. If your child knows already, likely they are already playing sports, whether it's at Abington or outside of school, and if they plan to continue playing sports in college, the schools they're applying to or will be D1 or D2 level, they will need to create an account with the NCAA Eligibility Center. They will list Abington High School as their high school that they attend, and that will give us the ability to upload their transcripts and any documents that they need for eligibility. So before they are actually allowed to play sports on those teams, they have to make sure, the NCAA has to make sure that they are meeting eligibility requirements, graduation requirements, specific subject area requirements. As you can see, there are GPA requirements depending on the level as well. Students can create an account, they can start talking to coaches. Students are always allowed to reach out to coaches. The requirements for coaches to contact students vary depending on the sport. You can go on the NCAA's website and look. Typically, coaches starting junior year in the fall, coaches are allowed to reach out to students and start doing more active recruiting, inviting students to campus to meet with the team, to try out, whatever it may be. So again, it really depends on the sport and the school and their process. So if you know that your child wants to play sports, now is a good time to have them reach out and start connecting with schools and coaches to set up that stuff. Naviance. I know Christina spoke a little bit about Naviance. Naviance is a great program that we have that we start really getting into with sophomores for sophomore year. As you can imagine, freshman year, they're just trying to survive and navigate new classes and expectations and teachers. So in sophomore year, we start doing a lot more career exploration. So they will do a career interest profiler where they will answer a ton of questions about things they like, things they don't like. It's usually funny because they're reading. One of the questions I think is like, would you like to raise fish at a fish hatchery? Like there's some really bizarre questions on there, and the kids always crack up and have a good time doing it. But at the end, they will get a list of potential careers that match up with the things that they are interested in. So if your child right now is still junior year unsure about what they want to do, you can refer them and say, hey, did you do that career interest explorer in 10th grade? Let's pull that back up. We can talk to them about it. Obviously things change throughout high school, but it's a great way. It gives them a list of potential careers. From that list, they can click and see what are the education requirements. Do I need a bachelor's degree? Do I need a higher level of education? Do I just need a high school diploma? It will also give them kind of a projection of careers in the future, like what is the job prospect for this career? What is the salary that I can make in Massachusetts having this career? So it's a really good way, not just for students who are interested in attending college, but any students in different career levels to give them an idea about that. We start working a lot more junior and senior year with Naviance. Students will do a lot more research. Supermatch is a great tool that we use with students. We broke this all down to them earlier this week. A lot of times students will come in and they say, maybe they have one school that they've heard of or a couple of schools that they've heard of that they've thought about, but they really aren't sure the specifics. So they might come in and say, I'm thinking about a major in business and maybe I want to stay in Massachusetts, but they have no other information. So you can go in, my lovely assistant here is helping. So they can go in and they can do a search and they can put in that criteria. I want to live in New England. I'm interested in a particular major. I want to go to a really large school because I really like the school feel and sports and kind of that vibe. This is
That's like the buses.
yeah.
Sorry,
Don't miss that corner. Does that shadow count? I don't know.
Let's see. I guess it's a motorcycle. Sorry.
They're afraid you're trying to hack into your own account.
Yes.
So Supermatch is great because it gives you a ton of search criteria from majors to size to the student population, location, sports, extracurricular activities, all of the things, and then it generates a list. So you can look.
Keep talking, discussion.
that's a great way for students.
Oh, I can't.
Skip it! It won't let you skip it.
Chimneys.
Welcome to our wonderful presentation. So Supermatch is great, and a lot of time when I have students who come in and say, I really have no idea the schools, I know I want to go to college, but I don't know anything, we'll go through the search criteria, and they can usually give me answers, and we can do kind of a broad search based on different criteria to generate a list.
This never happens.
Never happens. So Supermatch is great. Maybe one day we'll get into Navion. Director of Guidance! All right. Here. We have no fun at work ever at any time. Okay, so this is what, when your child gets, Mr. Solomini can attest to this right now, right? Because you were in this earlier? Okay, when you get into Naviance, there's a lot of tabs at the top. Self-discovery is where you would find that career interest profile that we talked about. But if you go up to colleges, and you go to scattergrams over here to the left, you can actually go on to colleges I'm thinking about, which I will show you in a minute. So these are all of the colleges that Christina Park has visited and is thinking about applying to. So students can add this into their colleges they're thinking about list, and from here, you can select a school, like Bridgewater State. Sometimes this takes a while to load, it's great. And you can see kind of a snapshot of information here. The net price, graduation rate, acceptance rate, deadline. You can go through here. Why is it not? Okay, here we go. You can see GPA. So you can see right here, Christina Park's GPA is a 2.74. You can see the range for students from Abington High School who have applied before, the national average scores. So you can get a little data snapshot from students who have applied in the past from Abington High School. That's not the scanner that I wanted.
You want the scanner?
Yeah, that's what I
Scroll
wanted.
down. No.
Wait, it didn't. Wait.
Right. Keep going. That one.
Oh, here we go. The other one's showing. Okay. So this is a great tool when students come and they'll say, I'm thinking about applying to these schools. Is this a target school? Is this a match school? You know, reach school, safety school, what have you? All of these marks are students from Abington High School who have applied to these schools in the past. So obviously the red X's are students who were denied. Green checks are students who were accepted. Blue circles are students who were waitlisted. And even though there's a GPA in here, I don't quite know why there isn't the little, I feel like the little person might be somewhere here. But so you can see where the scattergrams are. So the average GPA from Abington High School of students who have been accepted is a 3.0. So you can see the test scores and the GPA, and you can see where your student will fare on this, and that will give you a good idea of, is this a safety school, is this a match school, is this a reach school? So it's another tool to kind of help you while you were trying to figure out how I may fit with this. Yes?
Is scattergrams where you said a few minutes ago where you would put in like, I think I want to do business.
That is super match. So this is the scattergram, and this is based on just your GPA and test scores, so you can see kind of where you fare. I will show you super match.
This is based on a specific school, so this is Bridgewater State's
Okay.
scattering.
Is super match on Navion?
Yes. It is. So we go back to colleges. On the top left-hand corner, Supermatch College Search. Okay. And so we already did a search here. We chose a location, a major, campus surroundings, and the student body. So if we were, and you can see, so based on the selection criteria that we added in earlier, you can see there's a list of schools and average GPAs, test scores. Why was this 100% match? You can click on that, and it will show you. Because the location I put was that the school must be in Connecticut, in a suburb near a small city, the student body size, and the major was accounting. And so those were the search criteria we put in. And so these schools that are 100% match have all of the criteria that we put in. So if you scroll down further, there's a lot of 100% match. But if you were to go through here and start over, you can see that there's a lot It will give you the location. You could pick the different places in the country. Academic match, like there's student life academics, institution characteristics. So you could say, I want Greek life, I want a religious affiliation, I want, you know, a very small school with a few thousand students, or I want a large school with 30,000 students. I want to be, you know, in an urban location, or I want to be in the suburbs. So I feel like students may say, you know, I'm interested in a certain major, I'm really interested in history or English, and they may know I want to be close to home, or I want to go as far away from home as possible. So a lot of times there are at least a few criteria that students have a good feel about, and then we can use that to generate a search. And then from there, students can investigate those different schools, go to those schools' websites, look at the majors, the cost, admission requirements, all of that. So it's a great feature if your child is a little bit unsure. It's a great thing for you to sit down and go over with them and say, hey, what are your thoughts on these? And we can click through this together and kind of start looking at a list together. Back to this. Okay. So we talked about the college search. In Naviance too, as you were looking through colleges, the college will have a little heart in the corner. You can click the heart. It will then add it to your colleges I'm thinking about list. As your child is visiting schools and thinking about, yes, this was a good fit, I do think I want to apply here, or you know what, once I got to campus, this really wasn't my vibe and I'm not interested in applying here, you can then move schools over to your colleges I'm applying to list. So it's a really good way to kind of edit and navigate your college list. They'll do a lot of research with it this year. They'll continue doing research and updating it next year. Naviance is how we send documents, so we will send letters of rec, school reports, transcripts, all of that stuff we will send on your students' behalf through Naviance, so they will need to keep their list updated. It will be linked to Common App, so they will keep their Common App active, they will keep their Naviance active and updated, and we will send documents through Naviance. Now, junior year is the notorious toughest year. A lot of times students are challenging themselves more, taking more rigorous coursework. It's important that they are challenging themselves, but also continuing to do well academically. It is the last full year that will count on their transcript in terms of their GPA for college. So if they're applying early action, early decision, the GPA from freshman through junior year is what will be sent to colleges when they apply. There will be a mid-year report that will go out in January once first semester grades are posted, so colleges will get that updated GPA if that changes. But the application that will be sent out will have just freshman through junior year if they're applying early. If they're applying regular decision, it will have freshman through first semester of senior year. So if your child has continued to do well all of high school and they want to apply early and they are in the area of what colleges are looking for to apply early, great. If they have had some inconsistencies in high school, if they are now working on a positive grade trend and they may have struggled in the beginning and they are working to increase that, it may make sense for them senior year to apply regular decision to incorporate that GPA in their application as well. Continue researching colleges. I think that's the biggest takeaway for tonight is every college is different, deadlines are different, application requirements are different. So your child really wants to make sure that they know what is expected of them and what they need and when it is due by so that they can get all of that stuff done in a timely fashion. They should have a list of 10 to 15 schools that have been investigated and researched, that they know have the major they want, that they are meeting the requirements for, and that they are eligible for. Visit college campuses. Again, it's really hard to decide to go, and a lot of students will say, I'm trying to make these decisions, like they feel like this is the end all be all, this is my college experience, and if they haven't been to some of the colleges, it's really hard for them to make that decision because they have not been able to picture themselves at the school. So even if you do if you can't get to the school and you do a virtual visit, you talk to some reps like we spoke about, it's a really good way to get a feel for a school. Note the testing policy again if they need SAT or ACT testing. And then students will make appointments to meet with us. We will meet with all of the juniors as best we can throughout the rest of this year, take notes, kind of game plan with them individually what they want to do and how they can get there, and then we will continue working with them senior year. Okay. So this is the year that we just had these presentations, and I think they all panicked because they were not mentally ready for all of this. It feels so far away, but it's coming so fast. So senior year, we spend a lot of time in the fall with the seniors. We are available as much or as little as they need. We will do big group presentations with them in the fall to do a lot. This will graduate to a green folder with even more paperwork for them that they will just keep in their backpacks and forget about. And we will do big group presentations. We will meet with them individually again to say, what have you done over the summer? What are you working on? What are your application deadlines? We will do bridge walks twice a week where we will do application workshops where they can book with us to come in here. They can just work independently on their applications. If we are here, if they need help, sometimes they're going through their Common App and they're like, what is this asking me? I don't even understand this. We are here to help with that. High school moves very quickly senior year. You know, they're coming back. If they're applying early, you know, you're coming back right beginning of September. You have November deadlines if you're applying early, maybe October if you're applying in the South. So that's a very quick turnaround in addition to high school classes, potential activities like sports and such. So it's a lot that happens at the beginning, and we are available as much as students need. Sometimes just booking those bridge blocks with us where they can sit and actually get work done, where they don't have to worry about it outside of school. It's helpful. We're available to you all as well if you have questions. I will get emails from parents. My child is supposed to ask you this entire list of things, and I know that they haven't met with you. Can you please meet with them and make sure they have it? Or have they even met with you? What are they won't talk to me. I'm asking them questions. We get all of the things. It's pretty enjoyable. So we will meet with them a lot senior year and be available because it's their first time applying. For some of you, you've had students who have applied to college before. Maybe you haven't, so we know it can be kind of nerve-wracking for everybody. Students should have their list of schools by September. Even if they're applying regular decision, they should have an editable list of schools that they're thinking about applying to. And they should take their standardized tests if they have not done so in May and they know that they want to do that, then they need to make sure that they're signing up very early in the fall for that. All right. Financial aid will not happen until next year, but we wanted to just give you a little bit of information because we know college is expensive and it's something that you need to think about and kind of plan for. There's lots of different financial aid options. Grants are free money. Loans, obviously, you have to pay back. Scholarships, work study. FAFSA has been interesting the last 2 years. Hopefully, third time's a charm next year and it'll get easier. But FAFSA is required by a lot of schools, even to make you eligible for school-based financial aid, so whether that's school-based scholarships. We will have the financial aid presentation in the fall, so you can come and they will walk you through the FAFSA form, and so you get information about that. CSS profile is for some of the private schools, and if you are applying to a school that requires it, they will let you know that. MIFA is a great resource for families for financial aid information as well. And then scholarships, FastWeb is a website that students can go to and create an account. It will actually send them emails if there are scholarships they think they're eligible for. We will also have town scholarships, and we will do presentations with the students in the spring senior year for that. Additionally, there are school-based scholarships students might be eligible for, so there's money out there. Your students might have to work for it, write some essays and fill out some paperwork, so that's not super fun, but it is available. And that is the end of our formal presentation.
Does anybody have questions?
I do.
Yeah.
So how many times can a student take an SAT? Let's say they take it like, you know what, this is not what I would have done.
They can take it as many times as they want. We usually see that there's not much growth after the second time. So typically they'll take it once, they can get their scores, then they can prep a little bit as to the areas of strengths and weaknesses. College Board has a really nice prep tool through Khan Academy that they can get some studying based on what their past tests was. So they can take it as many times as they want. Usually 2 times is on average. It does have a fee of, I think, $60. If a student is on free reduced lunch, we can provide some fee waivers, so they would just need to come down to us and we can supply that for them.
And that's unless students take a prep course. So if students do take a prep course, then sometimes we do see more of an increase in their scores. But if they're just kind of just taking it in the spring and then the fall, we don't really see much of a difference.
Is there a certain amount of time has to go in between, or no?
No, you can take it, you can keep on taking it every month that it's offered. The colleges will super score the SAT scores, so if your child does better in the spring in English and then they do better in math in the fall, they'll super score that.
Oh, they'll take the highest of each.
Yeah.
They'll take the highest
Oh,
score.
okay, great.
On the Common App, students do have the option to disclose what their SAT scores are because a lot of their schools aren't requiring the SATs. A lot of students aren't self-reporting what their actual SAT scores are on the application, and just directly submitting their scores to the schools that will require it.
In addition to fee waivers for SAT, if your child is on free or reduced lunch or there's a financial need, in the Common App, you can fill out that you think you qualify for a fee waiver. It does have to be verified by us, but then that would make all of the schools that you apply to in the Common App free. So financial need is something that you have, then there are options for that as well.
Yeah.
When you apply in the Common App or whatever, say you apply to, 2 schools on one day, do you apply to all of them at the
No.
same time?
No,
Is it like
good question.
here's your fee for this one, then here's your fee for that one, or do you get like a bill for all of the fees?
No,
or-
so you will apply to schools individually, even though the Common App is like one giant application. Each school has their own separate tab that you would submit individually for, and you'll get charged every time you submit an application. It's not like a lump sum.
So
Yep.
even if you're applying like early action and regular, you have a variety of application deadlines. Some students will say, well, I did the Common App and it's all set, so I'm just gonna apply to all these schools on this one date and get it all done. So as soon as you submit, you'll pay individually. So you could stagger it by deadline if you wanted to, make it easier.
And if your child has an early action deadline of November 1st, November 15th, like we said, we'll send the transcript that has up to junior year grade. Once we have term 1 grades, which is usually right before Thanksgiving, we will send term 1 grades to those schools too. So it's not just like your child will just get colleges will get just the transcript of junior year grades. Once we have term 1 grades, then we automatically send that those grades to all those schools.
Other questions? Yeah.
How do they find out, about field trips, like going to?
We announced them, we showed them on Canvas, but we also announced them via email. And then it's kind of first come, first
The
served.
morning announcements.
Yes, the morning announcements, email, we'll email the class,
Okay.
first come, first served, yeah.
And then, where can we find their GPA?
That is on Aspen, it's on Naviance as well. If you have we can give that to you as well, like if you wanna email us, we're happy to, if it's
Okay.
hard to navigate through
The
Aspen.
view on Aspen
Well, I
is
know
great.
there, I have it asked, but we can see their,
I don't think you guys can see the full transcripts like we can.
Right,
And we can always send you a copy of transcripts if you
Yeah.
need it.
okay.
But we can provide any of your students' information to you.
And then my last question is, are they allowed to come to guidance like during their bridge walk?
they can book.
We are
they can book-
bookable.
Yes,
Oh, they book you?
they can book us, yes.
Can you book them though?
I have booked Sam. I'm making Sam come tomorrow.
Well,
Yes.
I'm just asking because I texted my son to say like, have you been on Naviance and all that? And he's like, no, it didn't work for me. I'm like, so did you ever do the career?
Some of
thing?
the
He said no.
students were trying to log on to Naviance through Clever, and it doesn't take them to the right place.
Yeah.
So I sent an email today with the link that they need to go through to access Naviance. It should be their school email, and it should be their school password. So I guarantee you they have an emailed link today,
Yeah.
TBD on if they've actually used it.
Okay.
And
We
I
got
feel
it,
like
right?
after the sophomore presentations, like I guarantee 99% of the students haven't touched Naviance since
At all.
the sophomore presentation. We just again reminded them of
That it
Naviance
exists.
this week. So
Okay.
I'm hopeful that they will start using it more frequently.
So if I have his school email and password, I could log into it myself?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Yep.
Let's go.
We unfortunately don't have parent logins, but yes, you can use your student. Other questions? Yeah.
I don't know much about the ACT, so can you think of anything specific, like a specific school or a time that you recommended that for a student or anything specific?
The ACT has a science component to it, so if the student is, has a lot of strengths in the science area, that would be a good test to take. They have practice tests on each website, So I always encourage a student who's wondering, like, should I take SAT or ACT, try a practice test out, it's free, and see what you perform better on. Colleges accept both, so they're equal, but the only big difference for the ACT is that there's a science component to it, whereas the SATs is just math and English. Anybody interested in seeing the Common App? I know it's past time, but we can show you what the Common App looks like if you're interested. No? Okay, cool. So, that's fine. Just know that the college essay prompts are already out. If you, what, the essay prompts are already available for next year. So if you are interested, you can do a quick Google search as to what the Common App essay prompts are. There's usually 7 options a student can choose from. There is an option of topic of your choice as well. I feel like students do better when they have a strict prompt because it helps them generate some ideas. But that is a really good summer project for them, is to work on their... You can Google it, or I won't bore you too long, but I will pull up, yes.
And when we come back in the fall, in the past we've had, twice a week we've had bridge block opportunities for students to just work on the application. Overall, the majority of the application really doesn't take that long. So I can usually get most of the application done with a student in a period. The only time that we, like the family piece is usually the piece that we can't answer just because it asks when you went to school, what your major was.
Parents' highest level of education, all that kind of stuff.
So that's just the stuff that your child just doesn't know about you off the top of their head, but the majority of the application itself is relatively quick. I know like students just find it to be a very daunting process, but overall like it can be done in less than an hour. What obviously takes longer is the essay and then the supplement questions for the colleges.
These are the different tabs, categories that your students will be answering on the Common App. For the essay, under writing, as I mentioned, these are the prompts. So there's a bunch of different prompts.
The essay is the thing they hate writing the most because they have to write it about themselves. They don't know what to write. It's hard, all the things. So you can encourage them to start brainstorming ideas this summer, start generating kind of a list of ideas. They will do writing in their English class in the fall, but especially with students who are applying early, if they can have it mostly written by the beginning of school, we're happy to read it and give them feedback. Things will go a lot smoother throughout the process.
Yes. So those prompts are actually like prompts for their personal essay?
Correct.
Just, okay.
And they're, like Ms. Medina said, that is just for the Common App. Depending on the schools your child's applying to, there might be supplemental essays like, why do you want to go to this school? So there might be additional essays they need to write too. So.
And just to your question up at front, in terms of like every college will have a different tab as well, and they'll have a different set of sub-questions that you would need to answer, and this is how you would review and submit for every individual school.
So a school like Bridgewater asks, some kind of generic questions. Some of it is redundant. Some of the top tier schools that may require additional essays, that's oftentimes where it's hidden is in those supplement questions, but some of the supplement questions won't take students very long because they just have to fill out what term they want to start, add their cell phone number, and just some other kind of basic questions. But some of the more competitive schools will ask for additional essays and more questions, and that will generally be in that section of the Common App.
We set this up with students senior year, so don't feel like you need to do that, and don't let them do it on their own because they always mess it up. We will do this with them like the 3rd week of September. We'll set it up and start working with them on it.
Email us if you have questions. Don't be scared to reach out because if you have questions, chances are your kid does too.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Ada.
Security with Navion.